your boy Recruit Zero. Is Ultimate Blerds live at Render ATL. We are here with Jon Gosier, founder of FilmHedge, founder of Audigent, and we here to talk some tech stuff, talk some film stuff, talk some nerd stuff, talk some money stuff. And
most important piece.
We are so happy to have him on and get this inside track on the information you got in your long career, bro. So give him an intro.
Sure. My name's Jon Gosier. I am the founder of FilmHedge. Before that, founded a company called Audigent, which was acquired last year by a big company you might know called Experian.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
even though all I get from them is my credit score, you got something better.
They've certainly gotten in the way of many loans and things I've been trying to do my entire life. So to get a big check from them was like, yeah, about time.
Right.
No, I spent most of my career building software companies. I started off wanting to make movies. Went to Savannah College of Art and Design, and over the years figured out that really it all comes down to who controls the money and how the money wants to participate in film.
Right.
And so I started a company called FilmHedge that solves that problem. And we help filmmakers around the world, all different types, doesn't matter the genre, doesn't matter what it's about. We can finance movies globally.
Okay, for sure, for sure. So that's an amazing intersection with tech and entertainment, all that type of stuff, which, I mean, as we know from like the generative AI, tech is intersection with entertainment in a lot of ways that people don't like. But with FilmHedge, give us a breakdown on exactly how you're bringing tech into that industry to try to, bring financing and bring more projects to the screen. You know what I mean?
Well, so one of the problems historically in Hollywood is the way movies got decisions made around them. Is there were essentially gatekeepers, right?
For sure.
It was like there's the people at the studios who decided if they liked the project or if they liked you, then you had a shot.
Right.
And if they didn't, or if they didn't know you, you didn't have a shot.
Right.
And if they didn't like you, you definitely didn't have a shot. So that's kind of how Hollywood has worked for 100 years. What started to change is, and what we are doing at FilmHedge to change that is not so much, like those people are still there, but the thing is they don't have as much power as they used to, because it's just not how movies now are no longer being made by studios.
Right.
Yeah.
So the gatekeepers at the studios no longer have the power to keep you and me and everybody else out.
Right.
How it works now is films are secure deals with distributors and what are called sales companies, and then those groups just sell what they can sell.
Right.
And so the way that FilmHedge kind of makes it easier for different individuals to get their films in front of people like that is it's really just about the budget. It's about kind of how the film is structured through what's called the finance plan.
Right.
And these are all things that anybody can put together. It's not easy, but it's certainly better than having to rely on one guy or girl to greenlight your movie, right?
For sure.
So you can kind of greenlight yourself now. That's what's changed.
Gotcha.
And when I say that, what I mean is most producers now are independently financing their movies. The money's not coming from the studios. It's coming from banks, very wealthy individuals. It's coming from companies like FilmHedge. And as long as you're a producer who can figure out how to navigate that world of independently financing your production, you can put out whatever you want.
For sure.
So let me ask you this in terms of like technology and software, right? Because that's kind of like where your background has started from originally. And I'm not someone who makes films, right? So consider me like your average consumer. I know that to create a movie requires a big team, a lot of different hardware, different cameras. But you're now starting to see like Apple saying like, hey, as long as you have a rig and an iPhone and maybe a couple mics, you're good to go. But are you really seeing that kind of trends? Like, is it getting easier to make films, or is there still some hardware kind of software barriers? Like now, give an example, anyone can make music, right? As long as I got a laptop and a computer, I can make a beat and do it all from the comfort of my computer.
Yeah.
Do you feel like films are kind of getting there, or you still think there will always be kind of like that separation?
So I'm of the belief there'll always be a separation.
Okay.
Now, the separation isn't in creativity.
Yeah.
You have all the tools in the world to be as creative as you want now. You can use AI and make an action movie that looks like something that was actually made in a studio. Like, that is legit happening. But that doesn't mean that that is going to be the type of movie that makes it to the mainstream market that people sit down and watch at home in the same way that they will, you know, a movie that's produced traditionally.
Wow.
It also doesn't mean that independent, like, sort of AI created or whatever, you know, that's made in your bedroom. It doesn't mean it's not brilliant, and it doesn't mean you can't make money doing it, but it lives outside of the ecosystem of how films are distributed. And so it's going to be treated differently by the people who put money into it. It's going to be treated differently by consumers. It's going to be treated differently by everyone. Again, it's not bad. It's just different, you know? And so I'll give you an example. There's a movie called Kung Fury.
Yeah.
It's an independent made thing on Kickstarter. You know, it's made outside the studio system, independently financed. It was a good movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
But they didn't quite figure out how to maneuver Hollywood. And so
Okay.
Kung Fury 2, even though the first one was successful, that thing's been sitting on the shelf for almost a decade. And it was an independent success story that brought Hollywood to the table, and they just didn't quite cross over from independent to navigating the Hollywood ecosystem.
Right.
Anyway, with FilmHedge, what we do is we make it easier for filmmakers to know what they need to get our money. Like, there's no subjectivity in it. It's not about whether or not I like your script. It's not about whether, you know, you're appealing to the same audience that I might be a part of. Doesn't matter. To us, all that matters is kind of the underlying pieces of a movie that they may not make sense outside, but like, if you're a filmmaker, you make a movie of a certain budget, you can apply to get the state to effectively guarantee a portion of your budget in the form of state tax credits.
Right.
Anybody can file for a state tax credit. There's no gatekeeper, right? And so when you go to FilmHedge looking for money, we just tell you, it's like, hey, have you applied for the tax credits? Because if you have and you've been approved, that's not money in the bank. You come to us with that piece of paper, we'll put money in the bank because you got the paper that says we'll get paid back by the state of Georgia because you filed for your tax credits.
Right.
And then same thing with like pre-sales and distribution agreements. These are all things that any filmmaker can get for their film.
Yeah.
And then come to us and effectively bank this piece of paper and turn it into cash.
Okay. Well, that's definitely, I know a lot of independent filmmakers, that whole like world of how do people get this money is like such a black box of like, if you're not in the know or have industry contacts, you can't really get your head wrapped around it. So getting that information from you is amazing, because that's one of those things, like you said, is always gate kept, where it's like, oh, you go to a movie theater, you see Sharknado 6, and you're like, how did they get the money for this? Why can't I find money for my idea? So,
so I mean, one of the things I was excited about coming here, you know, you guys have the Blerds podcast, right? One of the things that I grew up loving comic books. I used to go to comic book conventions, like over here at the Hilton and the Hyatt down here in Atlanta. But one of the things I became nerdy about is how the money behind movies works for exactly the reason you just said. Is like, who approved this bullshit? Because that's a lot of money that could be going to something more productive. We're not in the business of deciding what's good and what's bad, but when you know the rules to the game, and when we share the rules, like, you can just go to our website, you can learn everything about what we do. So you can apply online, and then my colleague Eric has this course he's created that teaches people about, you know, all the steps. And we do that because it's like, a lot of people complain about being, you know, I can't get my movie made. People are, you know, keeping me out of Hollywood. And it's like, actually, you just don't know the rules to the game. Nobody ever taught you the rules. So it's at least if you give people the rules, they're more on a more equal playing field to at least get their foot in the door and try.
For sure. And that's key. We trying to keep away from the gatekeeping. So FilmHedge is on that. Biz of Film is on that.
Yeah.
Go check all of that because that's the knowledge you need to know to really get that financing going for your films. Because like you said, it's out there. It's been democratized. It's just still finding that information.
Yeah. Access to information is everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, so let me ask you. So I'm familiar with like how VC works, right? Like you put the money in. Sometimes there's some share of ownership. Sometimes there's a say in like how things are running, or at least like a board seat, right? When it comes to financing film, right? If I'm a film person, I come to FilmHedge. Is there a conversation, or should I be knowledgeable about conversations of like what the return should be, what you're looking for, like in return, what ownership and those types of things? Are those things also important as well?
So I'll tell you, it's actually the opposite.
Okay, great.
So the biggest red flag to me when someone's talking about a movie they want to make is they tell me they know how much money it's going to make. And I'm like, how the hell do you know that? Like, I mean, like you got Disney spending $200 million on a movie that flops.
Right.
You don't think they wanted to know before they put up $200 million that this is going to be a flop?
Yeah.
There's no way to know, right? And so what you have to be honest about as a filmmaker is like, look, here's what we do. Here's who we're trying to reach. Here's what we think it's going to do. Like, use that language, which soon as people start saying they know, it's hard. Now, what we do, it's solve problems on the money side. A lot of people think I started FilmHedge to help filmmakers, which I kind of did, but really I helped it. I started it to help the people who want to put money into film not lose money. And there's ways to mitigate risk. There's ways to ensure that the film gets out. And if you can at least do that, there's certain reasonable expectations you can get. It might not be, 10x your money, but at least you know with confidence, like, here's where I put my money in. This thing's going to go out. And maybe it makes money, maybe it doesn't. But the other problem in the film industry is you have a lot of people who, they mean well, maybe they go over budget, maybe things don't shoot on the schedule that they wanted and they lose their actors, or maybe they're just outright don't have the best intentions and they misuse the money and they put in, you give them $2 million to make a movie, next thing you know, they've got like a Lambo, you know what I mean? It's like, all of these things happen in Hollywood. And so a lot of incoming filmmakers, they're like, why is it so hard to get money for a movie?
Right.
It's not always your fault. It's just all the people who have money have been burned by everybody who was there before you. And we started FilmHedge to prevent that from happening.
Right.
So we're like, let's protect the money people, because if they're happy, they'll keep putting more money into more movies. And that's kind of what we do.
Okay. So with that, I mean, I know FilmHedge, figuring out AI tech and bringing that into the film financing situation. Now your previous company, Audigent, we want to get a little nerdy with that. Because we know data is king in the tech industry, and Audigent was very reliant on that. So explain a little bit about that company and the revolutions that and what you built brought to the industry.
So Audigent was a company. So when I started the company, it was called Predictive Pop. And big part, and the reason why it was called Predictive Pop is because when I was in my early 20s here in Atlanta, I used to work at a recording studio called Doppler. And I worked with I was an audio engineer. I worked with lots of recording artists. And I used to sit in the studio and I would hear all these executives from, Def Jam, from Warner, from Universal, and they'd all be complaining about Napster. I'm telling how old I am. They were complaining about Napster. And then, so fast, that's when I was like maybe 24.
Gosh.
Fast forward, I'm 34, now living in Philly, and I had some success in the tech industry, and I had sold another company before that. And I was like, what do I want to do next? And I knew a guy in the music industry, and I asked him, he was asking him questions, and and he was complaining about Spotify. And I was like, wait, it's been 10 years. It's like, why are you guys still complaining about technology companies? First Napster, now Spotify. I was like, so I started to ask myself, it's like, why can't the music industry figure out how to make money on the internet? I mean, streaming is one way, but it's not the only way.
For sure.
And so I was like, who makes money on the internet? And so I had worked with Google, Facebook, and Twitter before. They were customers of mine at a previous company.
Gotcha.
And I knew how they make money. And all three of them, they make money by using everything they know about you as an individual, and then they let advertisers essentially track you all across the internet. And then they, you might be on CNN.com and get an ad, but that ad was placed buying data from Google somewhere else, right?
Right.
And so what I realized was, why don't I just do that, but for the music industry? Why don't I let recording artists be the signal, be the sort of point of interest in everything that we know about this artist, it's like, or this individual who listens to this artist. And then I'm gonna bundle up that data and keep it in a bucket. Let's say you're Bruno Mars. That was one of our first big uses of the technology, was on Bruno Mars's 24 Karat album.
Gotcha.
And I was like, okay, if you're a Bruno Mars fan, every time you stream one of his songs on Tidal, on Spotify, on YouTube, on Twitter, we drop what's called a cookie on you,
Right.
or a pixel, and then we can follow you all around the internet. And then we learn, like, you shop here, you buy this stuff, you hang out on this website on the weekends, you do this. So we built a whole profile of your entire identity. And then now you're in the Bruno Mars bucket, or the Taylor Swift bucket, or the Beyonce bucket, or whatever. And then we would sell that data to advertisers, and we would cut the artists in on the revenue. So now we created a whole new revenue stream for the music industry. And so I was going around trying to explain this to, all the artists I just mentioned and more. They didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And so eventually somebody at Warner Music, they understood that it's like, oh, if this works, so what I used to say to the artists is like, hey, I can help you make Google money. I've got this tech that does what Google does to make money. I can help you do that. And so the record labels, what they recognize is, if this works and you can, like advertise, ad data sales, they work by selling, maybe millions or tens of millions of like little clicks every day, and you do that across all these different artists, that's billions of dollars every single day. And you do that across a year, that's like hundreds of So what the record labels realize is, like, if you can do that and you're paying them directly, they won't need us.
Right.
And so the record labels smartly were like, we can't let that happen. And so they could either sue me, like they sued Napster and Spotify, or they could invest. And so luckily they invested in the company. And that was how Audigent started. That was the original problem that we were solving. And what happened over time is, and the reason why Experian acquired the company, is after a couple of years in business, we realized, okay, like, we're doing this for all three. So after Warner invested, they brought in Sony, they brought in Universal. So we were serving the entire music industry. Any music sold after 2014, the data that was collected from the streams and the social media activity probably went through our platform. And we weren't selling music. That data could be used to sell you anything. So, but it would start by tracking you from the music. But we realized, if we can start with music and track people anywhere, then we can start anywhere and track people anywhere. So then the company evolved to just do ad targeting, for what's called retargeting, for anybody. And we became one of the biggest companies in the industry doing that. And we changed the name from Predictive Pop because it was no longer a music connection to Audigent, which was all about, Audigent stood for Audience Intelligent.
I want to ask a question, because you hit on a through line that I've seen across your businesses, and I think it's important that you kind of talk about that, of solving problems, finding problems and solving those, kind of versus just having the idea, right? And how you've made so much money, it's had so much success in finding problems, and sometimes the unsexy problem, right? Like, so it might not be the sexiest thing of tracking this data and having that pixel that follows people around, but it's so important. Like, how important is it to pay attention to like what a company's problem might be versus like just having an idea?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, investor I met many years ago told me something that stuck with me my entire entrepreneurial career. And what he said was, as an entrepreneur, good entrepreneurs fall in love with problems, not solutions, right? So when you've got the idea guy who's like, you know, they're in love with their own idea. They're in love with their own creativity. They're in love with like, hey, I want this thing to exist.
Right. Sometimes
it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the things that always work is when you can build a business around like, what is the problem in the world that's preventing, like everything works this way, we want it to work this way. What's all the friction in between that's stopping that from happening? Because it's not just one problem. So if you fall in love with that really problem set, like all the different problems that are in the way, you will keep coming up with new ideas instead of just assuming that your one idea solves all the problems.
Right.
So like when I started FilmHedge, I didn't know half the stuff that I know about, all the stuff I talked about earlier, like state tax credits, pre-sales, distribution agreements. What I did know was that, the little piece that I had was, well, I don't want to invest in movies. I want to be a lender to movies because that's a way of somewhat controlling the risk. And so the problem that I fell in love with is how to mitigate all the risk investors face putting money into movies. And I just kept figuring that's all the different ways of looking at that same problem. And it's like, maybe you come up with something that looks like a solution, then another guy comes in and he's like, oh yeah, that's cool, but here's my problem. It's like, okay, well, let's figure that out. And if you can do that in an efficient way, without spending too much money and overextending your resources, you can build a highly scalable problem that can solve pretty much anything. So that's how I've gone about everything. When I started Audigent / predictive prop, I didn't know all the stuff that I learned about ad tech. All I knew was the problem was people in the music industry keep bitching about not making money on the internet. And I was like, who makes money on the internet? I'm just going to copy what they do.
Right.
And that worked. And then I had to figure out all the ways to be able to do that. But, I would say fall in love with problems, not solutions. And never assume that just because you made something that the problem is solved. You kind of always have to feel like, it's like, man, if only I could solve this. Like you want to chase that feeling of always like, there's one more thing I need to figure out.
Right.
And don't rest easy ever, because that's how competitors are built.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So as a founder, as somebody with successful exits, how do you feel like being Black in the tech industry has either helped or hurt you, especially in this age of, declining, kind of backlash with diversity and inclusion, all of that? How do you feel like the landscape is with that, and what would you want to see to either improve it or continue it, whatever the trend is, things like that? Because a lot of people don't have that experience of having a successful exit. There's plenty of developers, but everybody's not getting out and seeing that success.
Yeah, it's a tricky question, because the way I've always viewed it is I don't worry about what I can't do. I just think about what I can do, right? So if you've got people who you feel they don't mess with you, they're not trying to give you a shot, I'm not worried about that. I'm only worried about the people who will give me a shot.
Right.
And so, but that's me personally. And so I know that that's a very particular point of view that not everybody shares. Other people are like, no, I really don't like the fact that I can't get in this room because of my skin color or my gender or my sexual orientation or whatever. And so what I would say is you got to figure out what battle you want to fight. Are you trying to change these people's minds, or are you trying to build a business? Because you're trying to build a business, it kind of doesn't matter what these people think about you. It's like you just got to find the ones that will give you that shot, that will give you that opportunity. And it's not fair But you know, being an entrepreneur, nothing's fair. You know, like I mean, in my opinion, as a serial entrepreneur who sold 2 companies, one for I don't want to give the exact number, but somewhere between $200 and $400 million to Experian.
Right.
As someone who's you know, got a team of experienced people who've done great things. We're based here in Atlanta. We're building this company. I would think we would I mean, you hear about these companies in Silicon Valley. Some guy just has an idea and raises $75 million overnight.
Right.
And
I would think
off the back of a napkin. And like, here we are, we've built, you know, a very successful business. We haven't raised a lot of VC money. And, you know, a lot of people are like, man, you guys have done a lot with, so we've only raised, I'm going to give a specific number. If you only raised $6 million across 5 years of operating FilmHedge, everything else we've either earned or, you know, or we have these large credit facilities from, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars to finance movies, but we don't use that money to operate the company. The operating budget of FilmHedge has never been more than around $1.5 million a year.
Got you.
And it's, to me, it's funny because if you're truly in the business of making money by investing in good opportunities, there's a whole lot of people who just are sitting on the sidelines, not participating in what is a clearly scalable, successful business.
Right.
And I could complain about that, or I could just keep building my successful business, and when it sells, they're all gonna look like idiots because they just sat on the sidelines. It's like, your job is to find opportunities like this, and you're sitting on your hands. It's like, I can't do much with it. I can't change that guy's mind. If he's staring at an opportunity and doesn't want to put money into a company, there's not much we can do about that.
I just have one last question for you. For investors, right? People who want to get into investing in movies, right? How can they, one, either reach out and work with you? And then two, what would be your advice for people who are trying to get into that, right? Because you never know who's listening, and there might be people who are like, hey, I like what FilmHedge is doing. I got some money on the side. I want to put it in. I want to, you know, get into this in this game, and I like what you're doing. How do they reach out to you?
So if you're talking about movies specifically, it's really important to know, to decide which part of the movie industry you want to be in. So you got kind of in like mainstream studio movies, there's a different answer. You've got mainstream independent movies, which is most movies now. Most movies are independently financed. That means they're independent movies, and TV shows are mostly independent. That's our market. And then you also have kind of the smaller independent stuff. So TikTok creators and YouTube creators and people who don't have millions of dollars. Again, doesn't mean they aren't making brilliant content. And a lot of them do go on to have really big budgets, but they're still sort of outside the studios. So you got to decide which of those three you're gonna be putting money into, because the answer is different for all. I would say to do what FilmHedge does, you can just reach out to us. We have a program for people who want to, we call them co-lenders. So FilmHedge is not an investor in movies. We lend to movies. We might lend $50 million, but that is a loan secured by someone who's going to pay us back. And it's usually the distributor. So it's not you. It's like, if you're making the movie, most people don't have, even super successful people, you know, famous actors, they don't have the personal money to secure a $50 million loan. So what our loans are secured against is the agreement they have with like a Netflix or an Amazon, or that's why I say anyone can get it, because all it takes is you negotiating with the right group, and then we can lend against their commitment to you as a filmmaker. Anyway, we created a program where people can come in with, like, most people don't have $50 million. Most people don't have $10 million or $1 million. But if you have a couple 100,000, we have a program for those types of lenders. And now we work with a group called Republic that gets everybody else. So maybe you only have $50 or $100 or $1,000. You can go through Republic, who has a partnership with FilmHedge, and then you can invest in movies that way.
That's great.
Cool.
But now there's no excuse.
No excuse. No, this gave you all
Also, I would say if the quickest way to build a career in Hollywood is to be on the money side. Right? So I don't care if you want to be an actor. I don't care if you want to be a director, a producer. If you can find a way to do something to get credits in movies before you've actually made a movie,
Right.
it will only help you.
Right. Okay.
And the easiest way to do that is to invest.
Well, I was just about to ask, like, if you wanted to drop a last nugget, a gem on them, but you did it yourself. So we definitely appreciate all that information. And you definitely had, I mean, this is stuff people don't know. So having you on was amazing. Getting that information from the inside track, we really appreciate that. And we're gonna wrap it up. Ultimate Blerds, we're here with Jon, FilmHedge, Audigent, Biz of Film, all of that. Go check it out. We're gonna have the links in the description, but we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.